Good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome to all the law students and school administrators that have made time in their busy schedules to join us today. A little housekeeping. My name is Kevin Harmon, and I'll be your moderator today. I'm Senior Talent Acquisition Specialist in our HR Placement Division, and I help coordinate our law clerk program for the New Jersey Judiciary Courts. Before I kick things off with an overview of New Jersey courts and our one-of-a-kind law clerkship program, let's go over some housekeeping items. So the webinar today will be approximately 1.5 hours long, with the first hour being dedicated to our panelists and the last 30 minutes for more of a Q&A session. We will have opportunities throughout the webinar for questions to the Zoom Q&A feature, and we may also use the chat feature as well. But like I said, we'll have an opportunity over that last 30 minutes for a longer Q&A session. So keep those questions coming. If we don't have the opportunity to answer all of your questions during the webinar, we will follow up after the event. And again, one thing I should note, and this is really important, at the end of the webinar, I'll go over some key dates in terms of current clerkship hiring opportunities and the application process schedule for the 2022-2023 term, which current 2L students will be applying for. So please stick around for that. So New Jersey's court system is recognized and respected nationally for our progressive and innovative work. Additionally, we have an advanced information technology infrastructure that has enabled the critical work of the courts to continue during the COVID-19 pandemic. Last year, when everything happened in our IT department, they transitioned us very quickly from never doing anything at home to being able to do a lot of the work of the courts virtually. Our New Jersey state law clerkship program is one of the largest in the country. Each year, our judges hire approximately 480 law clerks statewide. Our panelists are here today to describe the critical work of our judicial law clerks and to provide you information on the application and the hiring process. I'm honored to introduce our panel. They're each going to take a few minutes to let you know a little bit about themselves. First up, we have the Honorable Judge Cherie Pitchford of our Family Division, representing the Middlesex County Vicinage. Judge Pitchford, tell us a little about yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. As indicated, my name is Cherie Pitchford. I am a judge of the Superior Court in the Middlesex Vicinage. I am a proud graduate of the Jersey City school system. I am a graduate of what was then St. Peter's College in Jersey City, now St. Peter's University, and also a graduate of Seton Hall Law School. I began my career as a law intern and then a law clerk in Hudson County. I was in the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office for approximately 5 years, then the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office for a little over 14 years, and then became a judge here in Middlesex County in December of 2017, when I was originally assigned to the Civil Division for almost a year, and then moved to the Family Division, where I have been for the last 2 years.
All right, thank you, Judge Pitchford. Next, we have the Honorable Judge Hani Mala, representing our Appellate Division, located at our central office in Trenton. Judge Mala.
It's afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this webinar. As was indicated, I sit in the Appellate Division. I've been in New Jersey's Appellate Division since 2017. I became a judge in 2010, and so working my way backwards, in the Appellate Division now. I was in the trial court in the family part and in the civil part between 2010 and 2017 when I was elevated. And prior to that, I'd spent nearly a dozen years in private practice at a few of the larger firms in New Jersey. And prior to that, I clerked in the New Jersey courts for a family court judge in Essex County, which sort of gave me my entree into the judicial system. So that's my background in brief.
All right, thank you, Judge Mola. Our last judicial panelist is the Honorable Judge Julio Mendez, assignment judge out of our Civil Division, representing Atlantic County Vicinage. Judge Mendez, tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you, Kevin, and hello, everyone. I became a lawyer in 1981. So this is my 40th year in the practice of law. Very proud of our profession, and I welcome you to this wonderful profession. I was in private practice in my home community of Vineland, New Jersey. I graduated from Vineland High for about 20 years. And in 2002, about 19 years ago, I became a Superior Court judge appointed by the governor and approved with the advice and consent of the New Jersey Senate, just like all my other fellow judges here on this panel today. About 10 years ago, the Chief Justice appointed me to be the assignment judge of 2 counties, Atlantic and Cape May County. And in that capacity, I'm the Chief Judge and Chief Administrator and I have the delegated authority of the Chief Justice in the handling of the vicinage affairs in Atlantic and Cape May County. I also sit in a variety of case types. I consider myself a family judge at heart, but I do handle all kinds of different matters. This morning, I was virtually selecting a grand jury here in Cape May County. So I'm very pleased to participate and share my thoughts and perspective. I was never a law clerk.
All right. Thank you, Judge Mendez. We are also joined today by one of our current law clerks, Erica Briggs from Rutgers University Law. Erica works at our Atlantic County vicinage under Judge Mendez. Erica, tell us a little about yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Kevin. As Kevin mentioned, I am currently clerking with Judge Mendez in the Atlantic and also the Cape May vicinage as well. I graduated from Rutgers Law in May 2020, and I also attended Stockton University as well as Ocean City High School. So I feel very fortunate that I'm beginning my legal career where I grew up. While I was in law school, I took a variety of different classes. I also participated in an appellate advocacy moot court program. I also volunteered with the Pennsylvania Innocence Project in addition to working at a plaintiff's employment firm. So I have a pretty vast background in terms of areas of the law, and I'm just very excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. And judges, for those introductions, let's jump right into it with a question for Judge Pitchford. From your perspective, what is it like to work as a judicial clerk in the New Jersey courts?
It's busy. There's no way around it. We have a number of caseloads, especially in Middlesex County. The larger counties see a lot of cases come in. We have a large number of people from the community who need help. And especially in the family division and in the criminal division, you need to be a customer service representative. Obviously, you need to know the law, you need to have legal skills, you need to have writing skills, but you need to be someone who can provide customer service. You are the introduction to the court system from the judge's perspective. How you treat litigants is exactly how litigants believe they're going to be treated by the judge and the rest of the court staff. So you are the person who is the face of the judge from the community standpoint, from the legal standpoint when the attorneys reach out. So you need to be empathetic and compassionate to some extent because people are usually afraid and don't understand the system, and how you treat them is going to give them an introduction to the system. But you also have to be a decision maker. You need to be able to have a position and stand by that position and have your reasonings for it. You can be wrong. And that's why Judge Mahler comes into play, because he's in the appellate division and can correct any mistakes. But you need to have a combination of people skills and have a combination of a solid work ethic, because you will be busy.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that. Erica, tell us a little bit about your time as a judicial clerk in New Jersey.
I agree with Judge Pitchford about being very cognizant of how you're treating litigants in the court system, because while this is maybe just another case for a clerk, a lot of the time it is something that is very important to these clients and these people that are interacting with the court system. At the trial level, I think you are given the opportunity to interact with the court staff a lot more than you would if you were clerking in the appellate level necessarily. I think you also are given the opportunity to interact with the actual attorneys or pro se litigants far more than you ever would in the appellate level. Obviously, COVID has impacted that, and I'm sure we'll touch on that later. But you're acting essentially as the primary liaison for your judge and maybe a gatekeeper for your judge in terms of just making sure that they are aware of everything that is going on with their matters, that they are kept aware of the status quo. In terms of a substantive, you're doing a lot of legal research, a lot of reading and writing. And if you're lucky and you have a judge that takes your opinion seriously, you are also given the opportunity to talk with them about how you're going to rule on a certain decision and what legal issues need to be explored more. And it's just, I'm in a very, I think, advantageous position clerking with an assignment judge because I have been exposed to so many different areas of the law, which I think has been very beneficial for me right after law school, because I didn't necessarily know exactly where I wanted to go finishing my law school experience.
Okay, thank you. Judge Mola, how do duties, I guess, for law clerks differ in the various trial courts?
Well, I agree with Erica that being a law clerk in the appellate division is substantially different than being a law clerk in the trial court. So the appellate division, New Jersey's appellate division, ranks in the top 10 of the appellate courts size-wise in the 50 states. We're currently, depending on how many judges we have, we're currently ranked around 8th in the nation. So as a result of that, we're quite busy. We hear about 6,500 appeals a year. Every appellate division judge is assigned 2 law clerks. The law clerk's primary responsibility is to prepare bench memoranda for the court. So the memoranda that's prepared on any given case is not only transmitted to the judge that the clerk works for, but the other judges that the judge is working with that particular term. The bench memoranda are critical to our understanding of the case. You can envision that the law clerk's role is essential, and you're in essence acting almost like a 4th judge in that you're on any given case, you're advising the court, you're digesting the facts and the law, and you're advising the court on what the outcome should be. Something that Erica touched upon is sort of the judge-clerk interaction. All the judges in the appellate division interact with their law clerks on not just a daily basis, but on an hourly and a minute-by-minute basis, whether it's pulling something to be researched or whether it's questioning an issue in a case. And you have, as a law clerk, the opportunity to influence not only the judge's thinking, but ultimately the outcome of the case, not only through the debating that happens with the judge in terms of how you see an issue and how the judge sees an issue, but also in the product, the work product that you generate that might maybe if it doesn't influence your judge's thinking, might influence one of the colleagues who's hearing the case with the judge. So that's the primary role of a law clerk in the appellate division. Secondary role, which is just as important, is my law clerks review all of my opinions before they are circulated to my fellow judges. We prepare them. Draft opinions are called greens because they're literally printed out on green paper. And my law clerks go through that, they scrub it, they edit it, they rewrite sections of it, and then I take a final look before it goes out to my fellow judges. The other thing that law clerks do is they review all of the other judges' opinions that get sent to me as well. So it's a very hands-on, it's a very intensive process. We're in constant motion. As a law clerk, you're either generating your own opinion, reviewing another judge's opinion, reviewing your judge's opinion, or researching something that is neither here nor there, that has had nothing to do with anything that you've been asked to perform. COVID hasn't really changed the game any, because we were able to, and I think Kevin touched upon this in the opening remarks, the New Jersey judiciary was able to rather quickly transition to a remote working platform. So my law clerks, as I'm speaking to you now from my home, my law clerks are in their homes and they have their laptops, and everything is done by way of email or by way of a video conference. And that's in essence, in a nutshell, what a law clerk does in the appellate division.
Thank you. Thank you. So Judge Mendez, how do you interact with your law clerks, and what are your expectations for your law clerks, especially during this COVID era?
As Judge Mola indicated, there's constant communication with the law clerk on a multitude of, at the trial court level, on a multitude of areas. I mean, Judge Pitchford highlighted the fact that we're in the customer service, access and fairness business as well. I call it the decency agenda of the court, trying to not only do the traditional role of the court in deciding cases based on the facts and the law, but also trying to make an impact in the communities that we serve, whether it is drug court programs or domestic violence related programs or similar type programs across the spectrum of our courts. So my law clerks literally become part of my family. During that one very important transitional year after they finish law school and they take the bar exam, they get to work one-on-one with a judge. What a great opportunity to see the inner workings of the courthouse, case management, the staff, how those cases move through the process, and also how important it is for law clerks to see judges in their decision-making process. How do you go about analyzing cases and thinking about cases and applying the law and doing justice and writing? There's a lot of writing involved, and sometimes, and Judge Mola probably appreciates this, sometimes you rewrite the same opinion 6, 7, 8, 10 times. Actually, I attended a seminar with a retired appellate judge recently. She suggested that at one time they had written the opinion 78 times, draft number 78. And you go back to Justice Brandeis' definition of what a good writing is, and we've all seen it. The good writing is a rewriting, and learning to write in a concise, straightforward manner. I always tell Erica, we want to make sure that when we write something, someone is able to read it and understand it after reading it one time, and that is the goal every single time. Additionally, the law clerk gets to see lawyers in action, and you get to emulate good lawyering and also avoid bad lawyering. Whether it is in terms of attitude or in terms of presentation or in terms of quality of the work that is presented to the judge. So being able to emulate good lawyering is another skill that you would spend a year evaluating and even discussing with the judge about how our case was argued, how it was presented, how the attorney put a lot of time on an issue that was really not the key issue in the case. Being a law clerk gives law students going into the practice of law a year later a leg up that I didn't have when I went into private practice 40 years ago. It set me back trying to figure out even where do I file this complaint, and what is the filing fee, and there's some practical things that you need to learn in the practice of law being a law clerk gives you a great opportunity. Getting to know the people in the courthouse who have been there day in and day out. This is their career, so they know a lot more about you in terms of than you about case management and learning from them and observing civility in the courtroom. All of that is something that is essential skills that you develop during your clerkship. And I know we're going to talk about what I look for. In Erica's case, there were 3 factors: local university, local high school, and working in an Innocence Project. That was the differential. A lot of people have great academic skills and present themselves tremendously. Me personally, I look for great work ethic. You know, the candidate that works evening shift at Wawa going to law school. That catches my eye. Candidate that does volunteer work in outside, even areas that are not legal related, that catches my eye. So I am looking for that whole individual and somebody that can work in a team and get along with people, and then good writing skills. There's nothing like, I mean, good writing skills is essential. Work ethic and writing skills are the two essential factors. One final thing that I suggest law clerks when they're applying for jobs, or reaching out and the like, and we have a mechanism in place in New Jersey. But if you want a judge to catch, if you want to catch Judge Mola's eye in terms of an application, why don't you send him a note, personalized, and say, Judge, I just read your opinion in such and such a case, and I will look forward to discussing with you that, you know, I think that will catch the judge's eye. These form letters that people send all the time, generally, you know, everybody gets the same letter, but I think you need to personalize it. One of the things that I ask law clerks in the interview is, what do you know about me in terms of my opinions? Do you read my opinions that have been published? And what do you know about me as a judge? So doing a little bit of research also helps.
Kevin, can I respectfully disagree with Judge Mahler for 1 second?
Yes. No, I guess sure. Depending on how you do it.
Well, he said that COVID hasn't changed the game. I think COVID has changed the game in the sense that we're getting more done.
Okay.
In some regards. And also, I think that I have more of a relationship with my law clerk now, because there were times when my law clerk would be in chambers and tethered to her desk and answering the phones or working on memos and such. But now she has the opportunity to hear what I'm doing in the courtroom, to be there for the domestic violence trials that I have, or there for the different motions, because she's logging in on Zoom, just like I am. So there's more access. So because, as already has been indicated, the law clerk is the voice for the judge, working on the memos and working on decisions, you get to see how your judge is thinking. You get to see how your judge is relating to litigants, relating to the attorneys, what arguments will fly in a particular courtrooms and which ones will not. So I think that your relationship is strengthened because you get the access to your judge that you ordinarily would not have. Plus, I oftentimes think that I'm kind of cool, and then it gives a little bit more time for us to develop that relationship, like Judge Mendez said, that you become a little bit more personalized to the law clerk and approachable. You share lunches, you share different experiences because you have more access.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you for that. And I'll allow you to disagree sometimes.
Everybody likes to pick on the
No
appellate.
rule book here. Now, Erica, I guess what's something that you wished you knew or surprised you about the role of a law clerk that you did not know before?
I think I didn't realize how much administrative work you were doing. I guess that might be different in the appellate level, but I think that in the trial level, you are also working as almost a second secretary at times for your judge. And I think that it's a big part of the clerkship at the trial level. So I think it's really important to be extremely organized, especially Judge Mendez has several cases that span across multiple divisions. So I think that I was unaware of how much administrative work was involved in the clerkship, honestly. But I do think that would probably be different in the appellate level. Judge Mall can probably speak more to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the clerks in the appellate division are, I guess, for lack of a better word, cloistered. And again, I was a trial court clerk, so I was doing everything from running copies to going out in the hallway mediating cases, trying to settle cases for my judge, to what have you, in addition to preparing, memoranda and motion orders for my judge to sign. The appellate division is much more different than that. The appellate division, as a law clerk, you will have virtually zero contact or communication with litigants. Your only contact with attorneys will likely be at oral argument. We do oral argument like we're doing right now since the pandemic, and our law clerks are always invited to participate in the oral arguments in terms of observing it. Sometimes I require them to observe it because there's an issue that I then want to discuss with them afterwards. But the beauty of how our court system is structured is that there is a difference in the job roles for law clerks at each level, and it's not one size fits all. It's not, I'm going to apply for the highest level court clerkship that I can get, and then wind up being miserable because it's not what you wanted to do. So when you are taking the time to consider who you're going to apply to, in addition to a lot of the helpful tips that the judges have imparted, including Judge Mendez's tip about interviewing, you should take a look at yourself as a person and say, what kind of, am I a people person? If my judge sticks me out in the hallway to help somebody, is that something that I see myself doing? Is that a skill that I want to hone? And use that to be part of the things that you use to inform your decision in applying for a clerkship.
All right, thank you for that. Now, this is for all panelists, but how do you keep in touch with your clerks as their careers progress?
Well, that's easy for me. Oh,
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry,
Judge.
I just jumped in. Actually, I've only been on the bench for 3 years, so that's a whole lot easier for me. My first law clerk is actually in Ghana, and she was shut down there visiting family during the pandemic, but then she's volunteering to do some of the mediation in the landlord-tenant cases here in Middlesex County. So I have regular Zoom contact with her and Teams contact, WhatsApp, whatever it is that's available. But my last year's law clerk followed in my footsteps. She's in the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office, so I can look out my window and see her leaving the building. We have lunches together. We spend time together because I'm interested in developing her career as well, especially because law clerks are the future judges for the most part. Many times they transition to that next level, and I believe that we as mentors to young attorneys should be following through with them, seeing that their career path is going in the direction that they're looking for it to go, and try to bring our law clerks together to see what works, see what doesn't work, to go through ideas. And Judge Mendez was correct. As a law clerk, you have access to who's a good lawyer, who's not a good lawyer. You know what firms you want to apply to, which ones you do not. So the relationship is an ongoing one, and there are a multitude of things. Most of my law clerks are voluntold to do community service, and we feed people at the soup kitchen, the local soup kitchen. We do so many different things because you are a family. You have to be in order for this to actually work.
Okay, thank you.
So let me follow up. I think Eric is my 27th law clerk. I am looking back. I have, when I mentioned become part of the family, I have been to baptisms. I've married 3 of them. I have been to weddings. I invited have a reunion in my home every year. We have a separate reunion that we do in Atlantic City as part of the State Bar Association as well, where we get together. Of course, COVID has impacted a lot of that. Unfortunately, this year, one of the two, the law clerks generally provide us a gift at the end of their clerkship, a minor symbolic gift. At least mine have over the years, and the two gifts that I have enjoyed the most. About 3 years ago, the law clerks got together and created a list of Josh Julio-isms that maybe Erica can share a few of those. And last year, my law clerk gave me a potted to put a plant And I say, Judge Mendez is not a potted plant. And I always say that when lawyers send you orders and think that you're just going to sign them, or there's an assumption that you're just going to go along with whatever it is that the petition that is being filed before you without doing your due diligence and performing your role as a gatekeeper. So law clerks are staying close contact with them. They text me all the time. They call me for mentorship in terms of employment opportunities, in terms of moving from jobs to jobs, and they are involved in a variety of fields. A couple of months ago, one of my law clerks called me all excited. She had just argued a case before the Supreme Court. A law clerk that was represented enemy combatants at Guantanamo Bay. So, the variety of work is immense. I ask every one of my law clerks to run for office because I tell them how important it is to have an impact and a hand on making good public policy. Hasn't happened yet. Maybe Erica will do it somewhere along the line. I always tell them, if you run for office, I'm going to retire and go and work for your campaign. But it hasn't happened yet, so I'm still here. So, but this is the kind of relationship that we have, and all judges have that. For the most part, all judges have that type of relationship with all, or if not most of his or her clerks.
Good. So, Judge Mahler, what are some of the types of, jobs that your past law clerks have secured?
Judge Mendez is ahead of me on the law clerk count. I'm next year I'll be approaching. I'll be on my 20th law clerk, and my law clerks have really excelled in the sense of they. I tell them, my goals for you, when you leave the clerkship are that you're happy and employed in life, and by and large they've all, I think, managed to accomplish it. So in thinking about my remarks for today's webinar, I sort of, went back in my mind's eye, tried to figure out where my law clerks are, and they are literally everywhere. I have law clerks who have started their own firms. I have law clerks who are at smaller firms. I have law clerks who are at large, 200 person plus firms, multinational firms. I have law clerks that have entered public service, public interest law positions. I have law clerks who are corporate in-house counsel at major insurance companies. I have a law clerk who's a public defender. I have a law clerk who's a prosecutor. I have a law clerk who is at the Attorney General's office. What I do is I'm all in on the law clerks in the sense of, if you as a law clerk give me everything you have in terms of your work during the term, I will reciprocate that and beyond even the clerkship. I take a hands-on approach with helping my law clerks refashion their resume, refashion their cover letters to make them more effective. I think Judge Mendez touched on that. A lot of times we get, at least in the law clerk application pools, we get sort of these standard letters and people think that's good enough to go look for a job. And so there's, I redline and mark up their resumes and their cover letters. I point them to places that they may want to apply, and then help them with the interview process by helping them either by way of a mock interview or by suggesting to them the things that they may want to bring up during their interview. And then, once they're up and out of the clerkship, we have, I call it rituals. They've been put on hold temporarily because of the pandemic, but we have a beginning of the term dinner in which all of the law clerks show up and they welcome the new incoming law clerks, because at that point, the incoming law clerks have no idea what to expect. And they think, the judge has horns and the judge seemed nice at the interview, but what's he really like? And that's an opportunity, not for me, but for my fellow law clerks to shoot the breeze with the incoming law clerks and acclimate them to what life is like in chambers. And then, we will typically have a get together at the end of the term as well to sort of bid the law clerks farewell. So it is a pretty cohesive unit. They all support each other, my law clerks. They have found jobs for one another. And as Judge Mendez indicated, beyond sort of the employment process, I've done a lot of the personal things. I've gone to the weddings, performed the weddings, gone to first birthday parties for their children, and other sorts of events, funerals, etc. So it's if you give your judge everything you have during your clerkship, you will find that you're going to walk away from the clerkship with likely a friend for life.
Thank you for that perspective. So Erica, take us through, I guess, your thought process when you decided you wanted to do a judicial clerkship.
So I don't know if my thought process was standard. I had actually not completely committed to the firm that I was working at while I was in law school, but I had informally accepted a job offer with them when I received a message from Judge Mendez about coming in for an interview. And I think within the first 20 minutes of the interview, I realized I wanted to defer and do a clerkship with Judge Mendez. In that first year, he explained to me that the way that he looks at the law is whenever a case comes before him, he asks himself, what is justice? And then he sees if there is a legal way to achieve that. And I think at that moment, I was reminded of why I went to law school in the first place and just the importance of this profession. And I think that all of the judges have touched on the experience that a clerk gets and how it's unprecedented, I think, in the legal arena. I think it's extremely difficult to compare it to any other job you could have as a young lawyer. And almost everyone I have talked to has said that it'll be the best year of your legal profession is as a clerk. So I can't necessarily give much insight on the process leading up to it. I know that I had a lot of friends, though, that knew from the start that they wanted to clerk, and they were very meticulous about their law school, just the classes they took, the things they did. I think that if you want to be in the appellate level, you need to seriously consider, I think at this point, I don't know how many people are 3Ls, 2Ls, but I think that being a part of journal or law review is very, very advantageous just because it's so much reading and writing that you're going to be doing in the appellate level. As I talked about, I participated in the moot court program, which again is reading and writing skills, definitely. And I think that just thinking about what area of the law you want to be in and pursuing your own interests in law school, because as Judge Mendez talked about, I was very interested in public interest work. That's why I volunteered with the Innocence Project. And that ended up being something that caught Judge Mendez's eye. And we have such a good relationship because we are like-minded people. So I think that staying true to your own interests, definitely, but also considering what judges are going to be looking for and creating a resume actively that will put you in the best position to be in the clerkship you want to be in.
All right, thank you, thank you. I'm going to open this question up to all panelists again, but do you favor applicants that wish to remain in New Jersey, or are you open to applicants that may be looking to get a good start, but may go elsewhere after their clerkship? Judge Fishford, throw it at you.
Well, it's interesting that that question is being asked because my first law clerk is from Canada and married someone who lived in Long Island and spent some of her time in Ghana because that's where her family was. So not knowing exactly where she was going to ultimately end up, but knowing that her residences were not in New Jersey, I don't think that that was important at all. My next law clerk was from Chicago and went to school in Rhode Island and in Vermont, excuse me, not knowing where she was going to end up. My current law clerk went to school in Connecticut. I think because people oftentimes live in one state and then go to school in another state, where you intend to work ultimately, it's not about that. It's about mentoring a new young lawyer. It's about giving them some insight in the court process and the people, the accommodations that are in the courthouse, because most people don't even realize it. They think the only accommodation is a Spanish language interpreter. They don't know that we have hearing devices. They don't know that we have sign language interpreters. They don't know that there are just so many different things that we do to assist the community. So where you ultimately end up isn't as important as you learning what the court process is like, what it means to be in front of a judge, what it means to make decisions, what it means to interact with your peers in the legal profession, with the community, that which could be ultimately your clients, with learning how to write for a purpose. You don't have to be right. You just have to be able to argue a point and support that point, because ultimately laws change because of a point. So you need to be able to articulate that. So for me, a law clerk is someone that I want to develop and to develop a relationship with. Where they ultimately end up, if I can help them, then that's better. But what state they're in isn't that important to me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good.
And I agree with the judge. Interestingly, I also hired a clerk from Canada. She went to the University of Edmonton, and then went to Howard. She was a refugee from Ethiopia that ended up in Canada. So that's what caught my eye. And she moved all the way to Atlantic City to work with me for a year, then went back to Canada. And I actually flew to Edmonton. She invited me when she passed the bar or the similar process they have in Canada. And I went to Edmonton because it's a wonderful relationship that I have with her. And I think Erica's example right now, I mean, she was thinking about getting into a law firm, and life circumstances change and you may end up in a different place. And you just have to be prepared. There are certain skills and values that you acquire in the clerkship that go with you wherever you go, and you can utilize them in any type of profession, whether it is legal profession or in other areas, in terms of getting along with people and teamwork and work ethic and good writing skills, stuff that you can apply to anything you do in life, and that will make you successful. So I it's a great opportunity that all of the participants have, and taking advantage of experiencing this important transitional year under the tutelage of a judge. And the other thing that I wanted to, while you may be interested in family law or environmental law or criminal law at this point, you just don't know how life is going to move forward. And you may end up appreciating an area of the law that you didn't even consider after you get into a clerkship and you get to observe that. And often, by the way, judges that may be doing family this year could be in the appellate division next year, or that would do. I mean, my first assignment was in a criminal division, and then 2.5 years later, I ended up going to family, and I loved being in family. I was very reluctant to do it at that point. So it's the basic skills, the basic values that you learn in during that year about life and lawyering, and about success, and about working together with others within the structure of a court system. The other thing that I mentioned before, I think the court system, particularly here in New Jersey, is constantly evolving in terms of what we do to impact the people we serve. And we are in the access and fairness business. We are in the criminal, we have, I think, in my opinion, the most successful criminal justice reform program effort in the country has taken place here in New Jersey. We've made an immense impact in justice. We're doing the same in municipal court reform. We're doing the same in many other areas. And that having that leadership from the top that comes from the Chief Justice, the Supreme Court, and the Administrative Director is essential to have that vision of a court system that is doing a lot more than just the traditional decision-making process that is expected, of course, in a traditional way. and living up to those core values that we represent every single day.
From the appellate perspective, I agree that with Judge Mendez's comment that the skills that you acquire as a law clerk are highly portable. They're even more so when you're in the appellate court, because a lot of the folks who clerk in the appellate court can transition to an appellate practice and not have to necessarily worry about the substantive law, because in the appellate division, we're generalists. We hear all case types. But one thing that we are not generalists about, it's about is about the art really of writing, of legal writing, particularly at an appellate level. So that's a skill that is highly transportable and portable, and you can take to a practice in another state. Many of my clerks are admitted to more than one jurisdiction. Many of them practice outside of New Jersey, and New Jersey tends to have lawyers who practice in specific jurisdictions, whether it's the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, DC, New Jersey, Delaware. So it's not unusual to see a law clerk go out to one of those states. And there's a high number of people who do New Jersey, Florida. So it's not unusual to see folks branch out and not stay in the state. I would say, however, from a personal perspective, I would prefer they stay in the state because I'd like to see them. But one can't predict where one's career is going to go. And in the appellate division also, it provides a nice platform if you're considering a federal clerkship, whether it's in the Circuit Court of Appeals, because again, you can take that skill set to the Circuit Court of Appeals, or whether you're looking at an even higher court. A lot of our clerks move on to, or at least apply to, the New Jersey Supreme Court.
And can I throw a little tidbit in there?
Yes.
Just because you want a clerkship with, say, me and the family court, because I'm a newer judge, we move. So I might hire you here while I'm in family, but be warned, I might be transferred to criminal. So if your mind is just set on doing one thing, which I think is important during the process that you develop a relationship with the judge, at least to some extent. I think I've hired because I connected with people. So when I went from I interviewed in civil and then I went to family, the law clerk had no problem. She came to New Jersey just for me and was willing to do the job in family just for me, because that relationship was what was important and what was developed.
Okay. And how often does something like that happen where you rotate from one division to another?
I'm in the middle of developing the assignment order right now, which I will be making a recommendation. I'll be making, that's what we call it, assignment judge. One of the many responsibilities that we have, and very important responsibility. But I'm in the middle of doing that. Then I'll make a recommendation to the Chief Justice. Have a conference with the Chief Justice, evaluate each of the judges, their skill set. They need to rotate, particularly for younger judges, and to develop the judges professionally. So it happens quite often. We may see in this vicinage here 4, 5, 6, 7 judges rotating every year. And generally they serve about a minimum of 3 years in the new assignment before they're rotated again. If people want to stay in the family division, generally the assignment judges and the Chief Justice are more inclined to allow them to stay for a while. And we have a few lifers in each one of the divisions, judges that have developed a very high level of skill set, whether it's criminal or family or civil, and they stay in that division for the most part. Judges rotate fairly regularly.
Okay, all right, thank you. Now, Judge Mola, how important is it to a prior work experience for when you're hiring a clerk, especially with COVID? It's been difficult to I guess expand resumes at this point.
Yeah, it's a good question. in the appellate division, if you come to work in the appellate division, you'll see that we use acronyms a lot. And so as a result of that, we have an acronym in chambers that when we're looking to hire, and when I say we, I don't just interview candidates. My secretary gets in on the interview, and both of my law clerks interview the candidates. We look for AT&T. So what is AT&T? We look for academics. We look for an indication, strong academics, an indication of being capable of working in a team. And we look for signs that the individual is capable of delivering a timely work product. So, beyond that, the resumes that come to me are not screened to see if the candidate worked at a particular firm, or to see if the candidate might have had an internship with a prosecutor's office or with a public defender's office. Because as I mentioned earlier, we are generalists in the appellate division. So it is highly unlikely that any skill set that you have developed prior to your clerkship working at a particular area is going to be a skill set that I'm going to rely on in any sort of singular fashion, or is going to be greater than the knowledge base that the judges on the part have. I say that as a form of assurance. I say that in the sense of, at least from my perspective, we're looking for a diverse candidate pool. We're looking for a candidate pool that can hit those requirements that I was talking about, particularly in the appellate division. When it comes to academics, it's not just GPA. It's, as Erica mentioned, having some sort of appellate experience, whether it's on a moot court board or writing experience, being on a journal. And so those are sort of the things that we're sifting through. I've had several law clerks who have had jobs in the food industry, in the food service industry. And that actually is a marker for me of someone who's capable of working in a team. And so we'll have a discussion about that during the interview. I see that you were at such and such so-and-so restaurant, or you were a bartender here or there, whatever, tell me about it, and it's that give and take, that back and forth, that is important, because we work as a team. When I generate an opinion, I want people to be able to see different points of view, not only my point of view, but another clerk's point of view, and craft the best possible opinion. When my law clerks interact with my secretary doesn't work for the law clerks. She works with the law clerks. And so I want to make sure that, the candidate who comes in is one who is mindful of that and is respectful of sort of the team function.
Okay. Now, Erica, do you have any, tips for the application process, application interview process?
As I touched on, I think that just being mindful about what you're interested in and what you're expecting out of a clerkship is really important. I think that Judge Mendez also talked about personalizing your cover letter, doing a little bit more research and not sending out just a standardized form. And then I think when it comes down to the actual interview, whether it's face-to-face or if they're all being conducted via Zoom, I think it's about really representing yourself in the best possible way and being confident about your skill set. And although most clerks are coming right out of law school and maybe do not have any experience as a practicing attorney, that is hopefully the end goal. So just really embodying that confidence and reassuring the judge that you are interviewing with that you will put out, like Judge Mala said, timely work products, and that you will take on the same amount of consideration that the judge does, that you're cognizant of the fact that the work you're putting out is reflecting your judge.
All right, thank you. So Judge Pitchford, and I'll open this up to all judges too, but Judge Pitchford, when selecting candidates to interview, what makes a candidate stand out, both good and bad?
Well, I have screeners, like has already been mentioned. My secretary meets them first. Usually I'm either on the bench or I'm doing something. So she's my first screener. If she doesn't like you, that might be a problem. And then my law clerk is also going to interview the applicant. I was one of the people who was given an opportunity. I wasn't all A's with everything. I wasn't law review. I was the everyday person working, living life, raising a child, and doing the best that I could under the circumstance. And I was given an opportunity. So at least for me on the trial court level, I think Erica is right. You have to know your strengths and weaknesses. Because I'm not an appellate judge, if your writing skills need some work, if I see that you're someone that I can work with or that my law clerk can work with, then I'm not going to be as concerned. But you have to be someone who I can vibe with, someone that I can talk to, and you have to understand me. I need you to be honest with me. I need you to know who you are and not be afraid of me. You need to be able to talk to me and tell me why it is that you think what you think. And you might just convince me otherwise. And I think young people are insightful. They know things that we don't know. I didn't have a cell phone growing up. They don't live without cell phones. So there's technology and information that they know about that they might be able to give me some insight about, but you need to be able to communicate it. Now, whether you need to know whether or not you're good at arguing, which I'm a fusser, I'm from Jersey City. So I like to fuss, so I knew I could back it up. So I was confident in myself because I was able to do that. And maybe not the strongest of writers, but I worked on it. So if you're willing to improve upon, so obviously you're in law school, so you have some degree of accomplishment. But if you are willing to work on things, I'm willing to work with you if I feel as though you're the right fit for me. So those screeners are part of the process. But then I also need to feel like you're not selling yourself. You're being truthful to me. You're being honest with me, because if you present one way and you turn out to be something different, your clerkship is not going to be a successful one and our relationship is going to fall apart. So be yourself, be honest. I don't look like everyone else. I don't pretend to be everyone else. I live my life differently than other people. Show me who you are. Don't show me someone different, because that's not going to work.
Understood. Good. Nice. All right. Judge Muller, Judge Mendez, any thoughts on that question?
I think I'm touched on, what we look for, but for those of you who are tuned in to this webinar from out of state, one way that you can help yourself is to understand that the New Jersey rules of evidence and the New Jersey court rules, by and large, follow the federal rules. So, if you're still in law school and you have the opportunity to take classes on federal civil procedure, the federal rules of evidence, because you don't have access to New Jersey practice classes, that would be something that, you should consider, as well as any appellate practices. If you're considering either the appellate division or the Supreme Court, anything dealing with appellate practice. If you're in New Jersey, or if you're in a school in New York or Pennsylvania that offers New Jersey practice cases, classes, and classes that discuss New Jersey cases, take them, because it'll at least orient you to our court system, and you'll have an understanding of how our court system functions in preparation for your application to a New Jersey judge.
Just following up, I mentioned earlier, make sure you know the judge that you're applying to, and you learn about the judge, so you prepare to discuss the dockets that the judge is handling, and if the judge has some published opinions or been involved in some high-profile cases, make sure you do the appropriate research so you can be prepared to do that and highlight that in the interview. I think my recollection is that I ended up talking to Erica about my visit to Justice Scalia in DC, and the relationship between Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and talking about judicial philosophy in general terms, talking about what is politically referred to as judicial activism, and the perspective on that. So I touch on a lot of different interesting areas in my interview, trying to get into the thought process of this person who's going to spend the next year with me, and who is expected to work really hard to to do great work, and who is that law clerk reflects the judge. So the law clerk does well, the judge reflects well on the judge. I always I've created some law clerk commandments, and one of those is every just make sure that your work product is checked and checked and checked, because it's got to be of the highest quality, because it reflects on the judiciary, reflects on the judge, and it ultimately reflects on the clerk as well, but particularly on the judge. So the reference to the legal secretary, learning that generally judicial secretaries or judicial administrative assistants have generally been with the judge for quite a long time, and understand that person is pretty much the boss of the office and runs the office around the judge. And also highlighting a little bit about the court system, understanding the New Jersey court system a little bit, understanding the different levels of courts, the types of courts, a little bit about the 47 Constitution, or unified court system in New Jersey, and so on and so forth. So all of those things will really come in handy as you highlight your skills. But ultimately, like Judge Pitchford indicated, you need to have that connection with the person. I try to, academics are important, but they're not the determinant factor from my perspective. There's a lot of other factors that come into making the determination of hiring. And that's what I've applied over the years. And for the most part, I've been pretty successful in hiring good people that have turned out to be good lawyers, and who reflect great in our profession and the court system and their individual careers, as well as their judge, who you become their judge forever. That is a wonderful relationship.
All right, thank you for that perspective. For all panelists, I guess what advantages are there to clerking at, say, the state level as opposed to the federal level? Obviously, New Jersey is the best, but.
Well, I'll go first if you want me to. I think because you have direct contact with who may be your future employer. You have access to the courts that you may be appearing in front of. You have access to the case types, the arguments that are made, the rules of law that are used, the procedure that is followed. You are on the front line of everything that you will be using in your practice. So you have an inside look into everything. But also because you're seeing different attorneys, different styles, you're able to develop your own skill set and what works for you, what doesn't. I had been a career prosecutor, and then when I went to civil, I was a nervous wreck. But I realized that the skill set I had as a prosecutor worked in selecting a jury, knowing the rules of evidence. You get an insight into what direction you may want to go in. I oftentimes say, or not often, but since I've been thinking about this, that the trial court level, as opposed to say the appellate level and Supreme Court, to some extent is people versus paper. You have to be able to navigate with other individuals and navigate with litigants and support staff and different people, whereas on the appellate and Supreme level, you're dealing with that paper. You're dealing with, you don't see them in the same way on paper as you do actually in front of you, and dealing with the emotion and dealing with the different sentiments that are coming forward. So that's it.
I tend to agree with Judge Pitchford. I think the New Jersey trial court is far more dynamic. The experience there is far more dynamic in terms of subject matter than you would get in its federal counterpart. The appellate division also, I think, would be the same in the sense of Again, when you're dealing with the federal courts, you're dealing with, with oftentimes interacting with federal statutes, and you're not dealing with the multiplicity of state law case types. So it all depends on what you want. If you see yourself ultimately practicing in federal court, then that's maybe where you want to be. If you don't know, the better place to start would be state court, because as we indicated in an earlier part of this presentation, a lot of the skills are going to end up being portable anyway. And so if you decide that you want to move on to a federal clerkship, you can do that rather easily if you have that experience.
And again, all clerkships are good. First of all, there are a lot more opportunities in the New Jersey court system for clerkships than there are in the federal court. So this is a matter of the odds of getting higher, much higher, just on the basis of having 400 plus openings in New Jersey. I've had clerks that went on to clerk in the federal system after they finish their clerkship with me. I've had clerks that went clerk in the appellate division after they finished their clerkship with me. But I agree with Judge Mola and the variety of cases that we hear in our state court system, the dynamics of those cases, the level of activity in the courthouses. Hopefully, we'll come back to that, despite the fact that I think our court system has done a wonderful job through the technological platform to maintain the wheels of justice moving forward. I miss the drama of the courtroom, and as a family court judge, I used to love to eyeball people and see how they handle themselves in the courtroom and where they sat and how they interacted with the different the other people in the case, and in the platform of Zoom or any other of the platforms that are utilized, you just seeing very little of that, and I think you miss some of that interaction. Plus, I think I find it may be my age, but I find it very tiring after being in front of a computer on video for hours and hours. So this is my about third hour doing this, and it's very difficult to, you're at the end of the day, you're like very tired. I always used to say when I was in family that I was a much better judge on Monday morning than I was on Friday afternoon. I wouldn't want to be in front of me on a Friday afternoon. And in remote operations, I'm a much better judge in the morning than I am in late afternoon after you've been on the bench all day. But again, all clerkships are good, and I think it's a great opportunity, a great transitional year between graduating from law school, and we recently got the results of the bar, so all the clerks were very excited about that, it's you get to have courthouse in New Jersey. Day in and day out. I used to encourage our law clerks, can't do it in the pandemic, to go and see, for example, we have 20 judges in the courthouse. Judge such and such has an opening argument by this prominent lawyer on a very complex case. Go and see the opening argument, or go and see the cross-examination of an expert on that another judge is handling. So you could actually take advantage of a lot of all the other things that are going on at the courthouse to continue to develop your skills, and you get to see other judges in action. And not all of us handle things exactly the same in terms of our approach, and you get to see different styles, different perspectives in the decision-making process of the judges.
Now, Judge Mendez, you brought up the bar exam. That's something that's been discussed in other webinars I've been on, but what do we do in regards to the bar? How much time do we give our law clerks to study for that?
Well, Erica, maybe Erica can answer that question as to how we handle it. Go ahead. When she took the bar in October, yes.
Oh, this was an interesting year. Due to COVID, they extended the bar twice. So people that were expecting to take the bar in person in July 2020 didn't end up taking it until October 2020, and it was remote. So the New Jersey Supreme Court issued an order, and it mandated that all the judges give their clerks 1 week in addition to their already vacation and sick time just to study for the New Jersey bar, which I definitely took up. I took the full week, and Judge Mendez also was very accommodating and gave me, I think I took 4 Fridays prior to that in order to study. I also took the Pennsylvania bar. So in that situation, there was no Supreme Court order to give me an additional week. And I think I took probably similar, about 4 Fridays, maybe an additional 2 days here or there. But it's just a matter of planning it out ahead of time, bringing the judge's secretary in, making sure that you're not scheduling anything during that time. So that way your judge can also maybe take time off as well while you're away, and just making sure that your judge is not left on their own, essentially. But it was definitely doable. It's not fun, but it's doable.
All right. And do you mind me asking if you passed?
I did pass the New Jersey bar. We are still waiting for the Pennsylvania results.
All right, congratulations. I have
Thank you.
much faith that you'll pass to Pennsylvania too.
Thank you.
Can I add something that I didn't
Sure.
think about? Because I think what law clerks learn once they come into the courthouse, at least on the state level, is that there are other opportunities for lawyers who do not want to be litigators, who want to do something other than. There are probation officers who are attorneys, hearing officers who are attorneys. There are division managers who are attorneys. So your ability to organize and to schedule, and the things you learn during your clerkship, the contact with people, that those are transferable skills into other areas of the judiciary. So you don't only get access to, say, the public sector and the private sector, you get access to the judiciary positions, and there are attorney positions in the judiciary, and people schedule for our judicial college and the continuing legal education and such. So there are plenty of opportunities for lawyers with non-lawyer type positions on the state level.
Okay, thank you. Judge Muller, is there any type of midpoint evaluation that you provide your law clerks where they can see where where further development would be needed, strengths, weaknesses, areas that need to be improved upon?
The law clerks are evaluated in real time, meaning that a law clerk in the appellate division, each law clerk has to generate a memo for the court once a week. And they usually have an off week. So it goes 3 weeks, then a week off, then 3 weeks, then a week off. So when you prepare your memo and you send it to me, I return it to you within 24 hours in track changes. And then we talk about it to the extent that we need to. Sometimes the changes are, self-evident, but if there is a writing style issue, we'll talk about it. And it's a two-way street. I end up imparting, I think, a lot more to the law clerk, but every once in a while, the law clerk will have, a grammatical, nit, a grammatical issue that makes sense that I incorporate into my writing style. So law clerks get feedback in real time in my chambers.
Good. Judge Mendez, this is an audience question that I think you can answer for us. How does one manage their emotions when you're hearing the details of various family cases? And what advice would you give your clerks who are less experienced with hearing, those kind of things over and over again?
I didn't get it. So how do you handle emotions? Is that it?
Yeah, how do you handle your emotions, when hearing the details of various family cases? Sometimes I'm assuming they may have rough details and such.
First of all, one thing that I always tell, there's no substitute for preparation.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know the case. You often need to know the case even more than the lawyers know their case. Even though you may have a very substantial motion that day. Like Erica said, I go through a process of trying to figure out what the dynamics are. When I was in family, love to eyeball people and get a sense from the case of what is really going on here in terms of the disagreement in this family. I used to do a little bit of pontifications in terms of telling people how important it is for them to themselves find common ground and do what's best for the children. But I am perfectly prepared as a judge to listen to them and to apply the law and do my best to get it right. And I also always took my time of talking to the litigants and connecting with them as much as I could to try to make them understand that you cannot allow the emotions of the moment change your perspective on this. And I would tell them that ultimately I'll do what I thought was best for the kids, because that is from my perspective the founding principle of family law, protecting the safety of children and doing what's best for them. So I enjoy doing that work. Many judges do not. As an assignment judge, I mentioned that I'm doing an assignment order, putting it together right now. I don't have many judges knocking on my door wanting to come to family. They want to go to equity, they want to go to civil, some want to go to criminal, but very, very few want to either stay in family or come to family. And part of that is that often, the first part of that is that it's a very difficult docket with a lot of emotions and a lot of cases. You get, it's not a single case at a time that you got to call it and you got to move on to the next one and call it and move to the next one. So it's quite a level of stress on the judge to handle those cases and on everybody around the judge as well. And part of that is that often we do not have as many family practitioners becoming judges as we should have, in my opinion. And there should be more family practitioners coming into the judiciary. Unfortunately, it generally does not happen that way. And I would love to see more family practitioners becoming judges. Of our group of 28 Superior Court judges in our vicinage, only 2 were former family practitioners. There's a few former prosecutors, 1 or 2 former public defenders or defense attorneys. Most of the others have a practice in the civil area. So, but the process of judicial appointment is such that perhaps the family judges have not traditionally been given the family practitioner tradition have not been given the opportunity to become judges. So, again, I apply the same principles in civil when I do civil, so complex litigation when I handle it. I handle election cases. This year I handled a whole bunch of election cases. Some of them may be before Judge Mueller right now, I do another Julioism is I want to make sure that I take ownership of the record, and I want to make sure when it gets to the appellate division, whether I get it right or wrong, at least they'll know why I decided, and then they can figure it out at that point from their perspective. That explanation of your decision, particularly in complex cases, is very important and very difficult in the trial court to write these opinions. Very difficult because when you're jumping from one matter to the next, to the next, to the next, it becomes an immense amount of work on the clerk and on the judge.
Okay. Now we're going to talk about our overall application process with our law clerk portal soon as we wrap things up. But for the judges, when do you typically go into our portal and start reviewing applications and starting your own interview processes? Judge Pitcher?
Oh, because I keep jumping in first. Well, we're not allowed to before, I believe it's June.
Right.
So obviously we're not able to do anything sooner than because I guess that it would give an unfair advantage to some, or you would be grooming certain people before you should. But I think realistically, oftentimes I'll get the email that alerts that there's something in the portal, and sometimes people will just send me something directly anyway. Obviously, because I'm in my emails every day, I get the emails faster than I do the portal, but there is a periodic check. Sometimes, because I have not been on the bench for very long, I've had a transition from one law clerk knowing someone from law school, and this one knew that one. And I think because of the personal interaction and relationship, that gives me a start. Or sometimes it might just be for an internship, because we do summer interns, let's not forget that. But I do access the portal to get a variety of people who don't think to directly send in their information. So I try to do it at least once a week or on the weekends when I'm here. But I don't do it probably as often as I check my emails. So getting them directly is a little bit more beneficial as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Judge Marler, when do you start your hiring process after the portal opens?
Immediately,
Okay.
because the appellate division, we compete, unfortunately, with the Supreme Court. I can't tell you how many times I've interviewed a candidate, absolutely love them, and then they got a job in the Supreme Court, and you can't begrudge that. So I move very quickly. What I do is my law clerks access the portal, I access the portal, my secretary accesses the portal, and then we choose the names, or we choose the resumes that we want to interview, and then we collate them, we put them into a yes, no, maybe pile, and then we agree on a small group of people. It's usually no more than a handful of people, and so far to date, we've never had to go beyond the 5 resumes or so that we've reviewed in hiring people. My point of view on it is, I think the majority in the appellate division, there are a few outliers. There are some judges in the appellate division who, I think rightfully so, believe that the pool of candidates is so talented and so deep that they're happy to let judges like me scramble and waste my time and try to get people. And then they sit back and they hire later. But I can tell you that the majority of my colleagues hire pretty quickly, and that I certainly do as well. I saw a question in the chat. I don't know if you need me to answer it or not, but that was just my answer to this question. So,
Judge Mendez, when do you start your interview process after the portal opens?
So when did I hire you, Erica? Do you recall?
It was the end of August, before my 3L year.
Yeah, so
For the September. So I actually for the year before. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I am very deliberate and very slow in the process, I'm not on the portal early on. I've generally been very deliberate in the process. I've delayed hiring until later on for a variety of reasons. I look for, I do research the portal in terms of what law school candidates from particular law schools. I generally alternate in-state and out-of-state every other year. But I'm a little bit more deliberate, and I've hired as late as, I haven't hired for September of this year yet. I'm actually interviewing a clerk tomorrow. So I have not yet done it. And for a multitude of reasons. And at times you get some really outstanding candidates that were anticipating going into a particular law firm, or were anticipating going into the Supreme Court or the appellate division, and they were not able to get into a higher at that level. And then they went up to the trial court for work, and I think it's and I've been again very blessed and very lucky in terms of the quality of the candidates that I've hired over the years, even though I have not really rushed the competition. I know in the appellate division, it's an intense level of competition for the clerks, not as much at the trial court division. But some judges hire immediately after they're permitted to do it. And some judges take a little bit more of their time. I get to review every one of the applicants, and I get to that the other judges are hiring, because I get to approve them as well, their recommendations. Thank you.
All right, all right. Let me share my screen over here. That brings me to some next steps. But I would like to thank all our panel and everyone in the audience for participating today. We will be sending a follow-up email to today's participants or your law school for distribution to today's participants with additional information and responses to any remaining questions. I know we had one hanging out there for Judge Mola. So like Judge Mendez was saying, he hasn't hired for this coming September. So for any 3L students still looking for judicial clerkships, there are a limited number of vacancies available for the 2021-22 court term that starts August 21. To apply, please visit our website. And if you're interested in applying to, Judge Mendez, he's going to start looking at applications tomorrow. So
There you go.
ASAP. Some other key dates that you should be made aware of: the recruitment cycle for the August 2022-23 clerkship term officially starts June 1st, 2021, when our notice of vacancy goes out and it's posted. I did see a late question in the chat asking if judges have clerkships every year. Yes, they do. So you should be able to access the portal and start applying on June 21st. Right now, you can access the portal and start creating your profile and getting your documents together, but you can't start applying to judges until June 21st. So our justices and judges may begin scheduling interviews and making offers of employment on June 28th. So again, any 3Ls out there looking, get your information in for 21-22 clerkships. Any 2Ls out there looking, you can start preparing now, but wait until June 21st to start applying. And to apply to a judicial clerkship position, please visit our website at www.njcourts.gov and go to the law clerk recruitment page. Slide. If you have any other questions, you can send them over to us at lawclerkfaq@njcourts.gov. But again, thank you to our panel, Judge Pitchford, Judge Mendez, Judge Mola, and Erica. We hope you all consider a judicial clerkship with New Jersey courts. Now, please join us for our third and final webinar session next week on the 31st, and we'll feature judges from the tax, civil, and family divisions as well. I hope to see you there. Be safe and have a great day. The work of the courts continues. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.